has
Namaste, Jai Hind, and welcome to this edition of The Right Stand. I'm Anand Narasimhan. The Modi-Putin summit comes at a critical geopolitical moment. Vladimir Putin's visit is the first since 2021, and both sides have signaled ambition to revitalize and expand their bilateral partnership. Bharat's foreign ministry has described the relationship as a special and privileged strategic partnership, and the summit aims to set a new roadmap for deeper cooperation across defense, energy, economy, technology. Defense cooperation is expected to be the front and center, including talks about supplying additional units of the S-400 air defense system, the upgraded S-500, and even advanced platforms like the Su-57 or the Sukhoi 57 fighter jets. Civil nuclear cooperation and civil energy, especially oil imports from Russia, are also high on the agenda, as is a potential trade and financial architecture to ease payments under sanctions, including discussions around a rupee-ruble mechanism. Vladimir Putin has signaled the desire to expand ties with Bharat to a no-limits stage. Listen in.
Мы нацелены вывести сотрудничество с Китайской Народной Республикой и с Республикой Индия на качественно новый уровень с усилением его технологической составляющей. На это нацелено множество совместных проектов в энергетике, в промышленности, космосе, сельском хозяйстве и так далее. По вопросам экономической повестки у нас выстроен содержательный диалог с председателем Китайской Народной Республики господином Си Цзиньпинем. Также подробно будем обсуждать эти темы в ходе предстоящего визита в Индию с премьер-министром господином Нарендрой Моди, включая увеличение импорта индийских товаров на наш рынок.
Let us also look at the different avenues where Russia and Bharat can in fact achieve a no-limits partnership. Defense and technology cooperation. If Russia delivers more S-400 regiments and offers significant technology transfer with S-500, Bharat could both upgrade its strategic air defense and strengthen domestic manufacturing and maintenance capacity. This would align with Bharat's push under its self-reliance or Atmanirbharta policy while preserving strategic depth. Meanwhile, also energy security and diversified fuel supply. With global energy volatility and sanctions on Russia pushing up uncertainty, Bharat's continued supply of Russian oil gives it a buffer. For Russia, Bharat becomes an anchor buyer, helping Moscow maintain energy revenues even under pressure. Economic and trade expansion beyond oil. Both sides have signaled interest in a broader trade deal exporting Indian pharmaceuticals, processed foods, marine goods, consumer products, and if successful, this diversification could narrow Bharat's trade deficit with Russia and generate more balanced trade flows. Financial and payment cooperation. Given the difficulties imposed by Western sanctions and pressures on global banking, establishing a stable rupee-ruble settlement mechanism could allow both trade and investments to flow with lesser exposure to Western financial systems. The civil, nuclear and energy collaboration. Talks are expected around small and medium nuclear reactors. For Bharat, that may help address long-term energy demand. For Russia, it's a way to export nuclear technology and deepen high-value industrial collaboration. However, no-limits cooperation won't be easy. There are multiple structural and geopolitical constraints. First up, trade imbalance and financial risks. Historically, Bharat's imports are far greater from Russia than the exports, leading to a persistent trade deficit. Moreover, rupee funds accumulate in special accounts because Russia may not be able to spend them freely in Western-dominated systems, which burdens Bharat's financial institutions. Western pressure and sanctions. That's a big risk. Russia remains under sanctions owing to its Ukraine invasion, and if Bharat deepens cooperation, it may draw diplomatic pressure or secondary sanctions risks from the West. Now, Russia's simultaneously strong relations with other global powers, now especially China, they introduce a strategic complication. Bharat may find aligning fully with Russia difficult if Russia's priorities diverge, for example, in Central Asia or in defense cooperation. Implementation bottlenecks. Even if agreements are signed, putting them into practice requires stable institutional and logistical frameworks. Historical difficulties like slow movement on joint ventures, delays in defense deliveries or part supply, and underdeveloped trade infrastructure remain serious constraints. Now, meanwhile, Bharat does not want to be seen as tilting completely toward Moscow. especially when it is building relations with Western powers. It's on the verge of signing an FTA with the European Union. There's greater cooperation globally and defense partners, maintaining a multi-aligned foreign policy where there is a certain level of strategic autonomy that Bharat can exercise. However, this summit comes at a moment when global alignments are shifting. Russia is under sanctions and seeking reliable energy buyers. Bharat is rising in global influence but also looking to secure energy, defense and economic autonomy. The global order is increasingly multipolar. A push for a deeper no-limits partnership signals that both nations want to hedge uncertainties. Can the all-weather ties be leveraged for no-limits partnership? That's the question. Let's go across to our guest straight away, Ambassador Rajiv Dogra, former diplomat, Dr. Anand Ranganathan, author, political commentator, analyst with us, Tatiana Kukhareva. She's a senior Russian journalist joining us from Moscow, and Professor Andrew Latham, international relations expert, joining us from Minneapolis in the US. My namaste to everybody. Thank you for your time. Tatiana, from the Russia point of view, what is perhaps the biggest box that President Putin and Russia would want to tick in this visit?
Well, I can't speak for the president personally, as well as I do. That's a privilege limited to his spokesperson, I'm afraid. But I think that, even the fact that the summit is happening, it's happening in person, that's already a huge statement for both leaders, I believe, especially right now. We're coming off of a meeting. You know that the president met with Mr. Witkoff last night. There's been a lot of developments. This summit comes at a very interesting moment in the year. There's been a lot of loud declarations, from the US, of course. There are many deals on the table. Okay. You just described them so beautifully. So wherever the two parties arrive, the Kremlin has already said this relationship is very special. This is a strategic relationship. It's a friendly relationship. It is incredibly special in the way that the two leaders share a common perspective on many things. So whatever the outcome might be, it will no doubt strengthen this relationship. That is for sure.
If you were to look at what Mr. Peskov said, Ambassador Rajiv Dogra, if there is an agreement at any point that Ukraine declares that it will not join NATO, this war stops, then the whole dynamic changes. And I think that's one of the biggest conditions. The immediate reason was that we don't want Ukraine to join NATO. If there is a commitment that Ukraine will not join NATO, there is a possibility of pausing this war immediately. That's one point. Then there go the sanctions, automatically a lot of things get eased. The other point is, what is the message that Bharat is going to want to send? And that'll also be determined on whether or not Prime Minister Narendra Modi receives President Putin at the airport. There'll be a lot of signaling that will happen. It's not just the 1-hour car ride in Tianjin. There's much more that could happen in New Delhi. Ambassador Rajiv Dogra.
Well, since you mentioned the 1-hour car ride, I think that was very significant in China. It conveyed many, many messages, and it conveyed a special bond between President Putin and Prime Minister Modi. Whatever happened in that car ride is subject to speculation, but obviously it meant that Putin cares for Prime Minister Modi and for India. Otherwise, he wouldn't have waited for 10 minutes for Prime Minister to come to the car. Mr. Modi was held up for some reason. But having said that, let me also go back a little bit in history of visits. Putin has visited India only 9 times in the last 25 years that he has been the supreme leader in Russia. Whereas he's visited China 23 times. And there have been there are annual exchanges of summits between our two leaders. There have been summits which have lasted only 4 hours in terms of a total visit by Putin to India. So it's not as if all along these 25 years, there has been great warmth between Russia and India, especially from Putin's side. I personally have been witness to that. that there was warmth and then there was a period when things started cooling off a little bit. But now is a new chapter. The visit itself, I mean, if any other leader was visiting India, or if, let's say, there was an annual summit exchange between India and Russia, it would not have been noticed very much in the outside world. But as you pointed to Ukraine and the developments there, the world is going to notice what happens in New Delhi over the next 2-3 days. So that is point number one. The second point is that despite everything, the fact is that Indian exports to Russia have remained at around between $4 to $5 billion. I'm not complaining because we needed oil, we got oil at favorable prices, so that is a positive. But beyond words that yes, we will increase our exports and Russia will start importing more, the fact is that on ground, it has to be shown that there are some new out-of-the-box solutions to this stagnation in our trade, Indo-Russian trade. There should be much more.
Right.
Having said that, let me also point out that it is not in public knowledge, but the fact is that Indo-Russian relationship is not just defense relationship. It goes across the board, from scientific exchanges to atomic energy and so on. The relationship is very deep. And the depth in relationship is also because of what is the bond between people of Russia and people of India. That is age-old. Not just Raj Kapoor, that was important, but there were other issues that sentimentally Russians and Indians like each other.
True. Well, one of the biggest methods would be to promote tourism. And if there is tourism and there is more tourism, there will be a greater flow. There is a big, meeting of the Indian business delegation along with the Russian business delegation at Bharat Mandapam, and it's a big one that's being planned for Friday. So clearly there will be certain messaging. Andrew, how are you viewing this?
Well, in a sense, predictable. Russia needs to demonstrate to the world symbolically that it's not isolated diplomatically, and having this visit to meet with the Prime Minister of a great power like India certainly sends that signal. On the Indian side, this is another symbolic signal of, as you pointed out quite rightly, strategic autonomy and multi-alignment in an increasingly multipolar world. And so at the level of symbolism alone, this serves the interests, advances the interests of both parties. And then there are the concrete issues. First and foremost, I think, having to do with defense matters, especially on the Indian part, not limited to defense. But the need for spare parts, the need for next generation air defense systems, the S-500, for example, the need to exchange cutting edge technologies in the defense sector so that India can move more in the direction of self-sufficiency, which is a stated and obvious goal. And of course, Russia's having some difficulty supplying spare parts and next generation because it needs many of these systems at home right now. So there's a tension there that has to be sorted out. And I think the opportunity, if the 1 hour car ride is the opportunity, then that's the opportunity. But it goes in concrete terms beyond the symbolism. It goes way beyond that as well, as some of my co-panelists have just pointed out. There's all kinds of relationships that exist in the defense sector, in the energy sector, in the trade and tourism sectors, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And this is an opportunity to sort out whatever difficulties, whatever speed bumps the two parties may have encountered in those various relationships. So symbolically, both predictable, but crucially important, and also in concrete terms, policy terms, predictable, but also very important as well. No surprises so far.
No surprises so far. Tatiana had a chuckle, a smile when you started speaking, and then she was reacting to Ambassador Rajiv Dogra. So, Dr. Ranganathan, quick word from her before I come across to you. Yes, Tatiana? You're on mute.
Sorry.
Yeah,
I believe that we've been on quite a few panels these past almost 4 years, right, Andrew? So it's been quite an interesting relationship. Well, the one thing that I should probably mention is that I don't believe that Moscow needs to show it's not isolated on a geopolitical level anymore. We've seen, again, the car ride in China. We've also seen quite, I believe you haven't missed it, have you? Quite an interesting meeting in Alaska, just, some time ago. I don't believe we are at a place where we can talk about isolation anymore. We need to kind of step away from that narrative. It's just a little bit old, don't you think?
Well, nobody is isolated in this world, but Jeffrey Sachs was speaking with Zaka yesterday, and he said that Trump is quite a hypocrite, that he continues to trade with China and with Russia, but is imposing sanctions on other nations who want to continue this trend. So this is not going to work, weaponizing of economics for long. But Dr. Ranganathan, thank you for your patience. Yeah.
And not at all. Good evening, Anand, and good evening to my fellow panelists, all of whom are experts. So I speak here purely as a layman. If I were to sum up the entire geopolitics where India has been concerned in the last couple of years, it is Putin has given us oil, Trump has given us turmoil. Sorry about that. Look, it's a coin with two sides. One is diplomacy and the other is hypocrisy. Let me deal with the latter first up. Hypocrisy runs not only in the West veins, but also pipelines. Even as the EU continues to buy 3 million tons of Russian iron and nickel, 18 million tons of Russian LNG, 8 million tons of Russian oil, the USA continues to buy 3.5 million tons of Russian fertilizers, 435 tons of Russian uranium, 1.1 million tons of Russian oil refined by India. But they want to punish India for buying oil from Russia. India has saved $26 billion over the past 3 years by choosing Russian oil over Saudi oil. Not just because of discounted Russian oil, but also because increasing our procurement of it has lowered oil prices in general, saving us money for the rest of our oil procurement. Without that, our inflation would have risen cumulatively 1.47% beyond its actual value in those years. And what to say about the Americans? You were importing 9% of your crude from Russia well beyond the Ukraine invasion. You sat on your bum when China violated the LAC in 2020. And it was Russia, erstwhile Soviet Union, that helped us in 1971 when you sided with Pakistan. So the West can stuff its hypocrisy in its hookah and smoke it. Look, Anand, the Ukraine war apart, for which I have always condemned Russia, why should India be singled out for looking after its interests? Besides, we enjoy excellent relations with Russia. With our bilateral trade now more than $71 billion, there's oil and gas, there's economic partnership, and there's excellent defense partnership. S-400, you talked about S-500, AK-203, BrahMos, etc. But let me concentrate on the other aspect that I can elaborate myself to some extent, being a scientist. Science and technology. This year marks the 54th year of India-Russia Science and Technology Cooperation. The ILTP, or Integrated Long-Term Program, was signed between India and the erstwhile Soviet Union 50 years ago. But it has continued even after the breakup and now enjoys excellent support from both India and Russia. 8 advanced centers have been set up that include Advanced Research Center for Powder Metallurgy and New Materials, Polio and other vaccine manufacturing in Bulandshahr facility, Indo-Russian Center for Biotechnology in Allahabad, and then there's one earthquake research facility. Several new initiatives have recently been launched to deepen sector-specific cooperation, primary among them being fly ash utilization. Coming to space science, very briefly, 30 seconds. There is superb cooperation. We have a bilateral agreement under which Russia will train Indian cosmonauts for the human space mission Gaganyaan. Then there's setting up of navigation satellite systems, Indian Navig-C, the Russian GLONASS. Bottom line is, Russia is and remains a trusted friend. And talking of friends, what is it that the old rogue Kissinger said? To have America as an enemy is dangerous, but to have America as a friend is fatal.
Andrew?
Let me just respond. I can't respond to all of that except to agree with most of it. But I will say this about the isolation piece. It's quite right. My co-panelist now for these many years points out that this is not Russia the day after the special military operation was launched. It's not that. But it is a moment in which negotiations are taking place. And those negotiations increasingly are involving not just Russia and Ukraine, but the United States and the Europeans as well. And Russia remains isolated in terms of both of those two constituencies, those two players. And I think and now I'm not I have no privileged insight, but looking as a specialist in this field from the outside looking in, it seems clear to me that one of President Putin's motives here has to be to signal to Europe and the United States, let's call it the West in general, that it is not isolated, that it is a player on the global stage. It's a great power with global reach, not just regional reach, and that when it's at the negotiating table with these parties, it needs to be taken seriously. There's another audience for this as well, that Russia, to some extent, is still, I think, looking to position itself as a leader, along with India and China, of the global South. Yeah. And this is another way of signaling that. So in terms of Moscow's motives, again, no privileged insight, but looking at it from a rational actor perspective, those are obvious motives. No. And then from India's perspective, an additional piece, which I didn't put on the table, and I don't think anybody has yet, is that from New Delhi's perspective, the growing relationship between China and Russia is somewhat problematic and more than a little troubling. So not in it, since we've invoked Kissinger, not driving a wedge between these two powers, as Kissinger tried to do, but certainly to mitigate some of that and to make sure that Russia does not fall into China's camp, or that there's not a bilateral relationship there which works against India's interests. I think that's got to be a motive on New Delhi's part as well.
Yeah, but the other thing is that Russia and China have their own conflict with respect to Vladivostok and that region. But they've overcome that and they've tried to work with each other at a time when perhaps this Asia bloc, there is a certain level of counter that happens. But from Bharat's point of view, Ambassador Rajiv Dogra, what is going to be critical for us? Because we are also on the cusp, and we are not looking at the near term. We're not looking at over the next 2 or 3 years. This is a gaze over the next decade. There is a direction in which the world is moving. There is a direction in which the global opinion is shifting. There is a direction in which more nations are thinking about the WTO. They're looking at the UN. They're looking at the UNSC, and these are all far greater strategic drivers of the way a global multipolar conversation will be driven. Is that also going to somewhere play up?
Well, this is a time of great flux, not change, because change is hard to come by, especially when great power interests are involved. But let me take a point on the issue of isolation. It is sometimes assumed that if USA is annoyed with you for some reason, then you are isolated. And if USA and Europe get together and are angry with you, then God be with you. That is not how the world is today. Europe is no longer in the reckoning of world powers. USA and China are. There's no doubt about it. But USA has tried its best to isolate Russia, and it has not succeeded. In part because India stood firm, to some extent Brazil also stood firm, and the global South understands and appreciates Russia's position more than it appreciates USA's determination to sanction anyone and everybody. So Russia is certainly not isolated in the global South. As far as India's interests are concerned, India's interests are not to seek support from Russia in any difficulty that it gets into. India is far too mature and big a power to be seeking help from others. But India welcomes the hand of friendship. I have already mentioned the incident in China. And such gestures go a long way. You mentioned about 1971 war. People remember it in India even now. People in Russia remember all the support that India has given to Russia, starting from when the Cold War ended and Russia was in deep trouble. You know, there was a time when Russian Air Force planes could not fly in the year 2000 because the Russian government did not have the money to give to the Russian oil producing companies. So Russia has come a long way. And Mr. Putin has a long memory, and hopefully after the recent events, there is a realization that India has stood by Russia, and we need to take concrete steps beyond
Ji.
what is happening on defense front and space and so on, which are great items of issues of cooperation. There is something where we need to develop this relationship to a level, economic level, where sanctions will not matter any longer in future, as you said, in middle term, 10 years from now, and so on. That is going to be the strength of this relationship.
No, there is this reloss deal that's also now been approved not just by the cabinet but also by the Duma, so the parliament itself, and that also talks about both nations being able to use each other's bases. There is something far greater that is now happening, Ambassador Rajiv Dogra. Dr. Ranganathan, coming to you after this, just quickly weigh in on that also, please.
Well, I can tell you that we have been cooperating with Russia even in terms of bases, for example, in the Aini base in Tajikistan.
Yeah.
So I will not be surprised if there is a time when India and Russia, besides exchanges during the military drills, which are regular features amongst countries, there comes a time when we go beyond that and come to some kind of a concrete understanding where our militaries exchange more than just training exercises. And that will be good.
Dr. Ranganathan, yes.
No, I was just saying, as a layman who doesn't understand or doesn't want to follow the intricacies of diplomacy, that I respect, by the way, it's important. Because the extreme other side of it we've seen by the way Trump conducts himself. The reality is, I speak again as a layman, what irks us most is the hypocrisy of it. Now, we were bypassing the sanctions that the West had slapped on Russia because the oil price cap was there, and irked by that because almost 40% of our oil was coming from Russia. They slapped sanctions on the two Russian oil majors to, nip it in the bud. But guess who got the exemption? Not us, but Germany and UK. So this is what hurts us, that if you are slapping sanctions, why do you have double standards? I'm not even talking about slapping tariffs on China. I'm talking of when you have the secondary sanctions that are hurting us now because we can't directly buy from the Russian oil majors. Why have the UK and Germany been given exemption? That is point number one. And point number two is Trump has demolished this so-called construction that had happened. You can say, maybe by the end of the Cold War, again, I speak as a layman, where globalization was the buzzword and people were getting well. Now, if you know, at least in the last 2 years, every nation is trying to have a FTA or free trade agreement with every other nation. Yeah. India has already had it with Switzerland. India is had it with UK. It's had it with Israel, and now with America. So it's completely de-globalized world, and I think the West should accept it, each person on his or her own.
True. The entire rules-based order or the WTO norms were first scoffed at and mocked by the Americans themselves. They are the ones who set these rules in place, and they are the ones who have scoffed and mocked it. The other simple point to ponder as we wind this up for now, but we will obviously over the course of the next 24 to 48 hours dwell on all the developments, is that Warsaw no longer exists. The Warsaw Pact never exists. NATO came into force because of Warsaw. And it's NATO that's expanded eastward. Ukraine is called borderlands. And whose borderlands are you trying to get into as a Western power? At whose doorstep? This is something, so who's the villain here and who's the hero? Well, we leave that for the viewers to ponder, but there is much more at stake in this Modi-Putin visit and also this entire summit, the Russia-India summit. We'll continue to track that. Andrew, Tatiana, Ambassador Rajiv Dogra and Dr. Ranganathan, thank you very much. Dr. Ranganathan stays on with us as we quickly shift focus to our next debate. But before that, there are huge security readiness ahead of President Putin's visit. More than 1,000 CCTV cameras are active. In fact, his exact time of landing, his entire itinerary so far has been kept very, very guarded. But Anvit is there at the hotel right outside, and the preparations, he's getting us a real reality check or a real-time check of the preparations around the venue where President Putin is likely to stay. Have a look.
Ahead of the India-Russia annual summit, President Putin is expected to arrive in New Delhi tomorrow. and this is the hotel ITC Maurya where he is expected to be staying during his time in New Delhi. Now, multi-layer security ring has been thrown around this hotel and around all the venues where Mr. Putin would be going. NSG and officers from Delhi police will be a part of the outer layer, as we are told, while the presidential security of the Russian president will handle the inner layers of security. What we are being told is more than 30 to 40 top security personnel from Russia are also reaching Delhi along with the President Putin. Agencies are sanitizing now every route that the Russian president's cavalcade will pass through and the premises he will be visiting. Specialized drones are also to be watching his cavalcade at all times. Jammers and AI monitoring and facial recognition cameras will be there at all access points to the venues where all he'll be visiting. What we know of as of now is that he'll be visiting Rashtrapati Bhavan, he'll also be going to Bharat Mandapam and also Rajghat.
Shifting focus here on the right stand, Telangana Chief Minister Revanth Reddy has triggered a major controversy with remarks made during a Congress party executive meeting. In his address, he questioned the multiplicity of deities in Hinduism or in the Sanatan Pratha or the Hindu way of belief, invoking examples saying there was one God for those who are unmarried like Hanuman, another for those who drink alcohol, another for those who marry twice, and one for those who eat non-vegetarian food, and another for those who eat dal rice. Listen in.
హిందువులలో ఎన్ని దేవతలు ఎంతమంది దేవుళ్ళు 3 కోట్లు ఉందా ఎందుకున్నాయి పెళ్లి చేసుకోవడానికి హనుమంతుడు ఉన్నాడు 2 పెళ్లిళ్ళు చేసుకునేటోనికి ఇంకొక ఆయన దేవుడు ఉన్నాడు మందు తాగేటోళ్ళకి ఓ దేవుడు ఉన్నాడు ఎల్లమ్మ పోషమ్మ మైసమ్మ కళ్ళు కొయ్యాలి కోడి కొయ్యాలి అనేటోళ్ళకు పప్పన్నం తినేటోళ్ళకు కూడా దేవుడు అవునా.
Now, he used this analogy to illustrate his point about the internal diversity of his party. While Revanth Reddy described the remarks as being made in a lighter vein, the BJP has accused Revanth Reddy of mocking Hindu beliefs and insulting the faith of crores of devotees, calling it a deliberate and targeted insult of Hindu traditions. BJP workers protested in Telangana and even burned effigies of the Chief Minister, demanding a swift apology. The BJP has also brought into focus past comments from Revanth Reddy, where he said Congress means Muslims and Muslims mean Congress.
मैं बोलने का मतलब मुसलमान का मतलब कांग्रेस, कांग्रेस का मतलब मुसलमान। आज कांग्रेस की ताकत, तेलंगाना सरकार की ताकत हमारे मुसलमान भाई बहनों।
Now, these remarks have yet again brought the focus on remarks from the opposition camp that the clear target is the Hindu faith and Hindu belief. Rahul Gandhi, 30th of April 2024, those who call themselves Hindus indulge in hate and violence. Udayanidhi Stalin, DMK leader, September 2nd, 2023, Sanatan Dharma is like dengue and malaria and it must be eradicated. K. Ponmuri, DMK leader, September 2nd, 2023, India bloc stands against Sanatan Dharma. Ramendra Sinha Roy, TMC MLA, 2024 March, Ayodhya Ram Temple is just an unholy showpiece. Humayun Kabir, Trinamool Congress MLA, May 2024, Hindus must not forget they are 30% and we are 70% in Murshidabad. In fact, an SP MP, Mohibullah Nadwi, made an open call for jihad inside Parliament over glitches in the Ummeed portal, which called for an atrocity against Muslims. Once again, the opposition has found itself on the wrong side of this entire debate. Or is this another indication of Sanatan Dharma being used as a political punching bag and, more importantly, as a massive appeasement tool?
6 महीने का टाइम मिला उम्मीद पोर्टल पे 30% ओनली वक़फ़ जायदादों का, मदरसों का, मस्जिदों, कब्रिस्तानों का रजिस्ट्रेशन हुआ है। उस पर भी सर्वर डाउन चल रहा है और वो डेट खत्म हो गई है। 70% वक्फ जायदादों का रजिस्ट्रेशन नहीं हुआ है। ऐसा लगता है कि आर्टिकल 25 और 26 को ख़त्म कर दिया गया है और मुसलमानों की ज़िंदगी हमारे प्यारे वतन में ही तंग कर दी गई है, जिसकी वजह से माननीय स्पीकर साहिबा, वो लोग जिनके पुरखों ने आज़ादी की लड़ाई लड़ी थी, मौलाना अरशद, वो कह रहे हैं कि जुल्म और नाइंसाफी के खिलाफ लड़ना शायद हमें दोबारा लड़ना पड़ेगा और जिहाद करना पड़ेगा। आखिर कब तक मुसलमानों को इस तरह से दबाया जाता रहेगा मुल्क में?
Let's go across to panelists. Rachana Reddy, spokesperson of the BJP, Telangana BJP, Akashdeep Muni, political analyst, and Dr. Ranganathan. Namaste, Jai Hind to everybody. Rachana Reddy ji, it was made in a lighter vein. It was an internal meeting of the Congress. It was shown to highlight diversity. Why take umbrage to these comments? That's what the Congress is asking.
A good evening to everyone on the panel. why take umbrage to these comments? Because Revanth Reddy has been a serial offender, and deliberately so, as far as creating a rift between Hindus and Muslims is concerned. I mean, if we look at his narrative over the last 2 months itself, recently we had the Jubilee Hills by-elections, where he himself, I mean, it's not the AIMIM or him being the mouthpiece, etc. You know, all that is what it is, but he is the one who actually said Congress party equals to means Muslims, and Muslims equal to Congress party. There was no confusion. He did not say anything on the lines of Congress party is going to take care of the Muslims, we are going to look out for you, your welfare, etc. Point blank, Congress party is equal to Muslims and Muslims equal to Congress party. That is the narrative he has set in the Jubilee Hills Assembly elections, and that is the narrative he's carrying. Yesterday, yes, it was a Congress internal meeting. It was a message to the newly nominated, elected, whatever of the TCC presidents, etc. But I believe, there was no context, subtext even. I mean, in a completely failing organization, if you look at the tatters that Congress party is in all across India and very much in Telangana. So there was no context or subtext for Revanth Reddy to even talk about gods or religion, etc. I mean, what was the point of saying that certain gods in Hinduism represent unmarried men, and certain gods represent the married men and taking on more wives, and certain gods represent alcoholism, etc. I mean, where is it coming from? Because in Telangana, I mean, I'm sure in some other parts of India as well, we have Maisamma, Pochamma, whom people pray to. I mean, it's not just one strata of the Hindus who pray to them, etc. We have Bonalu in Telangana, and Bonalu is a huge festival all across Telangana. It is a festival celebrated through a holiday.
So is he mocking these festivals, or is it his limit of understanding that a diverse belief system, that is the Hindu way of life? Because first up, when he says 3 crore deities and devatas and all of that, it's a fallacy. It is ideally, they misinterpreted it as 33 crore. It's not even 33 crore, it is 33 koti. That means Ucha Koti. That is a certain level of elevation, and they are only 33, and that's how it's mentioned in the Rig Vedas also. But that aside, Akashdeep Muni, why this thing? Why is it that it's so easy to bring and mount context in a lighter vein, popular vein, however it is? It's always about the Hindu way of life. There are multiple beliefs in other systems also. Why didn't he take that, or are they not diverse enough for Revanth Reddy?
See, Anandji, Revanth Reddy highlighted the inclusiveness of both Hinduism and Indian National Congress, stating that just as Hinduism has a god to suit every mentality, the Congress too has space for every viewpoint. I'm quoting him. What's wrong in that? Why can't we acknowledge that Hinduism is a diverse, allows diversity? And see, you remember in the 70s, there was a movie called Jai Santoshima. And then people started praising Santoshima. So, and you will find in number of places, specifically in tribal culture, I'll cite Odisha, where I am from. There are many places where you can praise even a tree. You can tribal people endorse that aaj se hum is patthar ko puja karenge. So diversity is one of the most important pillar of Hinduism, and same is in Congress. You know about India bloc. There is Shiva Sena and there is Trinamool Congress. Both are diametrically opposite in the ideology, but they are together. This is India. This is diversity of India, where there can be a person of Tamil Nadu and there can be a person from the Jammu and Kashmir. And Indian National Congress and Hinduism is similar in the same vein. I don't see any problem. And there is no mocking. We are Hindu. BJP does not have the quality कि हम ही हिंदू के बारे में बोलेंगे. वो बंसीधर भगत का कोटेशन तो आपको याद होगा, बीजेपी के एमएलए थे कि ना कि भाई अगर विद्या चाहिए तो सरस्वती को पटाओ, धन चाहिए तो लक्ष्मी को पटाओ. आई एम कोटिंग हिम, दैट्स इन पब्लिक डोमेन. आई एम नॉट सेइंग, आई एम जस्ट कोटिंग, कोट अनकोट. सो जब ऐसी बातें बीजेपी करती है, then we relegate it to background. But I don't see that when diversity is praised by a Congress chief minister, what is the problem?
Okay, Dr. Ranganathan?
नहीं, ये डाइवर्सिटी, ये मॉकिंग, लैम्पूनिंग, वॉट एवर यू मे कॉल इट, फ्रीडम ऑफ एक्सप्रेशन, ये तब कहाँ चला जाता है जब हिंदुइज्म के अलावा और रिलीजन्स आते हैं. इसीलिए मैं कहता हूँ 4 नींबू निचोड़ने से दूध भी इतना नहीं फटता when you talk of other countries. And the point of the matter is the hypocrisy is mind-boggling. In fact, let me put it, it is institutional. Recently, Anand, you would remember one op-ed intellectual who till recently was supporting Rushdie, now calls him Islamophobic, no longer supports him, because if he did, he'd also have to support Nupur Sharma. And he doesn't want to do that. Incidentally, on diversity, the Congress party and Dr. Modi, who supports Congress party, did not even want to utter the fact that Nupur quoted from the Hadith. This is the scared nature of these hypocrites. This is what passes off as intellect in this country. When it comes to Islam, remember how Prime Minister Manmohan Singh on the floor of our parliament demanded an apology from Denmark for the Prophet cartoons. Remember how Sonia Gandhi publicly apologized to the Shahi Imam of Jama Masjid. But when it comes to Hinduism, it's a free-for-all. I guess Hindus are tired of selective targeting and hypocrisy. Secularism is not a one-way street. If it isn't the popular discourse, the stand-up comics, the tweets mocking Hinduism, the Tanishq ad or Red Label ad where it projected a Hindu as bigoted and non-accepting of his Muslim neighbor. It is done by parties like DMK, TMC, Congress, all those Gau Mutra jibes, terming Hindu god Parshuram a terrorist and a rapist. Congress did that, claiming Hindu epics replete with misogyny, Me Too instances, celebrating Tipu Jayanti despite knowing he demolished hundreds of temples and converted and butchered lakhs of Hindus. And who can forget the phrase saffron terror or the communal violence bill where only the majority, i.e. Hindus, would have been held guilty in communal riots. Look, Anand, if we are talking of mainstreaming hate, why are we as a nation so scared to even make public the preachings that render Abrahamic religions exclusivist and supremacist? So although I am not for banning any ad or any stand-up comic or film that mocks Hinduism or Hindu gods, because there are so many, especially lately, it would be a good idea for the makers to append their creative work with a small print that says, yes, we are mocking Hindu beliefs and Hindu gods because we can, and Hindus have always accepted this. We dare not mock Islam or its practices or its prophet or God, because if we do, we'll be beheaded or killed like Charlie Hebdo journalist or Kamlesh Tiwari. In fact, we are too scared to even support an alleged blasphemer, because even that harmless act of solidarity will get us beheaded like Kanhaiya Lal or Kole. Just this simple small print will assuage the Hindus and make the Muslims realize that we live in a country that used to cherish the freedom to criticize religion, and where the punishment for apostasy or for being a kafir is not death. 4 नींबू रख लो अपने पास.
Well, Rachna Reddy, how would you want to respond to Akashdeep Muni that he was just quoting diversity? Why is the BJP getting toxic about it?
What is diverse in the fact that there was no context? I mean, if you're talking about it, first of all, is there an Indie alliance still existing? Because I believe Congress party walked out of that and said that there is no longer going to be an Indie alliance. And INA, equating INA to diversity, INA to Bharat, it's like the oft-repeated thing, Indira is India. I mean, what do they want to prove? There, it was a district Congress president's meeting. It was an internal organizational meeting. What are you trying to prove by saying that Telangana has gods who promote alcoholism, who promote unmarried or rather Brahma unmarried men and others who promote married men? I mean, what is the context? I mean, what is this stupidity where you have the audacity to be sarcastic? And if you look at the clip again and again, Anand, it is completely sarcastic, and you have people laughing it out as if it was a riotous comedy in the background. And these are Hindus, and these I mean, their political beliefs aside, these are Hindus. They have the audacity to be sarcastic and comment about Hindus.
Is that audacity? Is
like
that
Anand said, they can get away with it.
Is that audacity?
Will Revanth Reddy say anything sarcastic or preachy about Islam? Will he dare say that?
No,
and will his,
not necessarily Islam.
Any
Any non-Hindu belief system, will he say the same thing is one question. The other thing is, Dr. Ranganathan, many would also argue that Revanth Reddy is a practicing Hindu. Now, he should have the right to be able to make an example, say something in jest. Now, whether that is ill-informed, that is in bad taste, that's one part. But should that be held against a person like him because he's the sitting chief minister and because of his utterances in the past? That's another question. Dr. Ranganathan.
As I said, look, the most open, I won't even call it religion, it has religious aspects. Way of life is Hinduism. For, we have a stream that does not even believe in Vedas, the Lingayats. We have a stream in Hinduism that doesn't believe in God, atheism, Charvak. So this is the most glorious of philosophy. So of course you can mock, you can lampoon, everything is allowed. But the point is hypocrisy, and Hindus are tired of the hypocrisy. The same Revanth will not mock Islam that actually glorifies misogyny and patriarchy. Why, may I ask, is wife beating allowed? Why, may I ask, are women called tilling fields for men? Why, may I ask, are the inheritance for women half of that of men? ये बात करने में डॉक्टर मुनि की भी चार नींबू वाली हालत हो जाएगी. That is what I mean. The problem is not mocking Hinduism. The problem is hypocrisy.
The other thing is, the problem is that we are all so typecast and conditioned to allow the Hindu way of life to be skified. So we are ready to call it Hinduism and send it into a skiism, but we will not say Islamism or Christianism. So we don't, but Buddhism, Sikhism, Hinduism, so all that has emanated from Bharat are skified. There is a skiism that is allowed, and we have also allowed that to happen. So someone somewhere, the Hindu community has to reflect, why don't we call it Hindutva and why do we call it Hinduism? Why do we allow the skiism to continue and we have not changed that? Unless that happens from within, people will continue to take liberties like they are, and they'll say, what's the big deal? You are not affected. Like bulk of the non-vegetarian, non-Muslims eat halal meat, but it doesn't matter to them. It doesn't matter to them. So the day it starts mattering, then there will be a noise about it and there will be awareness about it. So who's to be faulted? I leave that question. We've got big news coming in from Madurai. Dr. Ranganathan, stay on with us. Akashdeep, Puni, Rachna Reddy, thank you very much. Now, there are activists and devotees who have staged a protest over the lighting of the diya in Madurai in the Tiruparankuntram temple complex in that region, after the cops have stopped them from reaching the Deepatun at the top of the hill to light the diya, as was permitted by the Madurai bench of the Madras High Court, which allowed a batch of writ petitions seeking permission to light the Kartikai Deepam at the Deepatun, or the ancient stone lamp pillar at the top of the Tiruparankuntram hill, just near Madurai. Now, these are pictures. Purnima now joining us with more. Yes, Purnima.
Well, it's a contempt by the Tamil Nadu government over the lighting of diyas at Tiruparankuntram. No lighting of the lamp was allowed at the pillar just closer to the Dargah, and the usual spot where the lighting usually happens during Kartikai Deepam. Only that continued today despite the court order. They were not allowed to light the lamps near the Dargah. Therefore, the Hindu outfits tried to go and light the diyas, so the police stopped them from going. So dramatic visuals at the Tiruparankuntram, as only the usual spot was chosen yet again for the last 100 years. It's the same spot where the diyas are lit every time Kartikai Deepam festival is celebrated. Despite the court order, it's a clear contempt by the Tamil Nadu government for not lighting the diyas, even though the court had ordered so earlier today.
Right. M.R. Venkatesh is with us on the phone line. M.R. Venkatesh, you are a lawyer. As per the court orders, there was talk that the EO itself may move the division bench. That did not happen. So the orders of Justice Vishwanathan stay.
It is Justice Swaminathan.
Justice Swaminathan, yes.
Yeah, and I was the advocate for the petitioner who led the charge. And the original order, which was pronounced day before yesterday, allowed the HR&CE department to go and light the lamp at the peak of the hillock, which is where the Deepathoon, which is the traditional lighting place. Deepathoon means a stone where the Deepam can be lit in Tamil. And this has got references in ancient literature of Tamil, Sangam literature and others. And the justice was persuaded to allow this particular right of the Hindus to be done. But HR&CE department declined. They did not also get a stay from the division bench, which they tried today. They didn't get it. And at 5 o'clock, a mention was made by my colleague, Mr. Arun Swaminathan at Madurai bench, saying that there is a gross contempt. At 5 p.m., it was taken up as per contempt. Then they said, wait till 6 o'clock. We are trying to do something. And 6:05 again, the judge came back and asked them, did they light it at the Deepathoon, which is the summit of the hillock. The HR&CE and the DMK government gerrymanderingly spoke of something else, and the justice asked them point blank, did you light it or no? Did you light it yes or no? It's a binary position. To which they replied again in a fuzzy logic. Then the justice said, okay, I am now allowing 10 petitioners to go up the hillock, light the lamp. And he has ordered the CISF of the Madras High Court, Madurai bench, to accompany the petitioners to protect them and go there and light the lamp. As far as I know, last I heard them was at the base of the hill. They have not yet spoken to me. I'm anxiously waiting as to what could happen. There is going to be some issues there.
Well, M.R. Venkatesh, just stay on with us. What we are given to understand right now, viewers, is that these protests are because the petitioners are not being allowed to go. The cops have blocked the access. That's what is happening. Dr. Ranganathan is with us. Anand Ranganathan. M.R. Venkatesh still with us on the phone. The petitioners allowed after there was gerrymandering, and the HR&CE department gave a wishy-washy answer to the court, said 10 petitioners can go. Look at the pictures. Yes, Dr. Ranganathan.
No, I'm saying, would you or shall I do the needful? Maybe let me do the needful. India is a banana republic. We don't have guts. We don't have guts to do the same for every other religious place of worship except the Hindu places of worship. Right from the Places of Worship Act, right from the fact that we are controlling only Hindu temples, right from the fact that people who control the Sanatan Dharma and the temples are the ones who want to eradicate Sanatan Dharma. But then I ask you again, who is allowing them to do this? Is it not the central government? Where do you lie the blame? The blame has to lay at the point where the responsibility of not having this atrocity being witnessed by billion Hindus lies. How much clearer can we be, Anand? It has reached an inflection point.
Okay.
Are these people violent people? Are these people, not following the High Court order? This is what it has come to. Even a High Court declaration is not enough for Hindus.
Right. Well, I've run out of time, but viewers, this is the case. The court has permitted. It's the state which is blocking the petitioners from going up. That's the case. That's the story of this Tiruparankuntram temple. And this has been blocked for decades because of an illegal encroachment and an attempt to try and further cobble up temple lands. Brazen appeasement on display. We're winding up the right stand on that note. M.R. Venkatesh, Dr. Ranganathan, thank you very much.
This is News.
Fenesta Windows, beautiful and durable designs, इंस्टॉलेशन से मेंटेनेंस की लाइफ लॉन्ग कस्टमर सर्विस। आपके घर में फिनेस्टा नहीं है तो कॉल कीजिए।
Find Finer Fenesta. Stay ahead with News 18. News from your city in your language. Real-time updates, in-depth analysis, and breaking news. Anytime, anywhere. Only on the News 18 app. Scan and download the News 18 app now.
First since 2021, and both sides have signaled ambition to revitalize and expand their bilateral partnership. Bharat's foreign ministry has described the relationship as a special and privileged strategic partnership, and the summit aims to set a new roadmap for deeper cooperation across defense, energy, economy, technology. Defense cooperation is expected to be the front and center, including talks about supplying additional units of the S-400 air defense system, the upgraded S-500, and even advanced platforms like the Su-57 or the Sukhoi 57 fighter jets. Civil nuclear cooperation and civil energy, especially oil imports from Russia, are also high on the agenda, as is a potential trade and financial architecture to ease payments under sanctions, including discussions around a rupee-ruble mechanism. Vladimir Putin has signaled the desire to expand ties with Bharat to a no-limits stage. Listen in.
Мы нацелены вывести сотрудничество с Китайской Народной Республикой и с Республикой Индия на качественно новый уровень с усилением его технологической составляющей. На это нацелено множество совместных проектов в энергетике, в промышленности, космосе, сельском хозяйстве и так далее. По вопросам экономической повестки у нас выстроен содержательный диалог с председателем Китайской Народной Республики господином Си Цзиньпинем. Также подробно будем обсуждать эти темы в ходе предстоящего визита в Индию с премьер-министром господином Нарендрой Моди, включая увеличение импорта индийских товаров на наш рынок.
Let us also look at the different avenues where Russia and Bharat can in fact achieve a no-limits partnership. Defense and technology cooperation. If Russia delivers more S-400 regiments and offers significant technology transfer with S-500, Bharat could both upgrade its strategic air defense and strengthen domestic manufacturing and maintenance capacity. This would align with Bharat's push under its self-reliance or Atmanirbharta policy while preserving strategic depth. Meanwhile, also since 2021, and both sides have signaled ambition to revitalize and expand their bilateral partnership. Bharat's foreign ministry has described the relationship as a special and privileged strategic partnership, and the summit aims to set a new roadmap for deeper cooperation across defense, energy, economy, technology. Defense cooperation is expected to be the front and center, including talks about supplying additional units of the S-400 air defense system, the upgraded S-500, and even advanced platforms like the Su-57 or the Sukhoi 57 fighter jets. Civil nuclear cooperation and civil energy, especially oil imports from Russia, are also high on the agenda, as is a potential trade and financial architecture to ease payments under sanctions, including discussions around a rupee-ruble mechanism. Vladimir Putin has signaled the desire to expand ties with Bharat to a no-limits stage. Listen in.
Мы нацелены вывести сотрудничество с Китайской Народной Республикой и с Республикой Индия на качественно новый уровень с усилением его технологической составляющей. На это нацелено множество совместных проектов в энергетике, в промышленности, космосе, сельском хозяйстве и так далее. По вопросам экономической повестки у нас выстроен содержательный диалог с председателем Китайской Народной Республики господином Си Цзиньпинем. Также подробно будем обсуждать эти темы в ходе предстоящего визита в Индию с премьер-министром господином Нарендрой Моди, включая увеличение импорта индийских товаров на